welcome back. Even in hard times, it takes a lot sometimes to give of yourself. And I'm so appreciative of the people who come on our show and take the time to really give back to the community, to our listeners, in ways that maybe, you can't always get good advice. That a lot of people are out there trying to sell stuff, and versus just really educating. Dave Duncan joins us, who has sold a lot. In fact, he's averaged 50 transactions per year since 1986. But welcome back, Dave.
Good to be here, Ben. Thanks.
Yeah. In this giving kind of idea, a lot of real estate agents, I think they're in the business of selling houses. But as we kind of discussed today, you have a lot of information that, you're capable of giving potential clients, not for a cost. You're not charging people for this, but this is just some elements of housing in 2011 that you're capable of just giving away. And I appreciate you bringing it on.
Well, I'm happy to, Ben. A lot of times, our office had a meeting today, and we talked about trends from 2011 that we saw and how we think that'll translate into 2012.
What, these numbers are starting to come out from 2011. What are some of those big numbers that you see?
The National Association of Realtors produces some numbers at the end of every year fairly quick. And the first one is that it was kind of surprising at first that we always like to see how many sales in a given year from first-time home buyers. And in 2010, they're actually half the sales across the nation were first-time home buyers, whereas that was in 2010. In 2011, it was down to 37%. And at first, I was surprised by that. But then as we think about the tax credit we had that expired in April of last year, that's a logical conclusion. The exciting part for me and it should be for the public too is that means 2/3 of all sales were not first-time home buyers.
And so this is, if not first-time home buyers, these are some investors. These are some people maybe buying a move-up home, downsizing. I guess it's all in that other 63%.
Exactly. I would say it's probably about half and half. I don't have the precise number, but we saw a lot of investors come out of the woodwork. But again, we saw a lot of people selling their traditional homes, not short sales or foreclosures, but traditional sales, and therefore they were able to move up.
Do you think that is a sign of a healthier market looking forward when you have maybe a third first-time home buyers, maybe a third of the people moving up? Is that healthier?
Absolutely. That's more of a traditional market that we've had over the years. And by traditional, I just mean something that's predictable. Then people in all professions can plan better, whether it's a builder or whether it's in the mortgage business, staging business, all the people we'll talk to today. It's nice to be able to predict within a reasonable range of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I remember reading something where the average home purchase actually kicks like $40,000 into the economy. So any uptick certainly is more than just the housing market.
Yeah, I did. Again, in that meeting we had today, they talked about the keys to a recovery. And, of course, the first thing was selling houses. Second thing was jobs, and which those two things combined stimulate the economy. So we've got a lot of things to do ahead of us still.
There's a lot of people that are sitting working with us on the mortgage side, and they're going through this application and approval process to get a house. And, on our end, people know it's hard. Do you find, are people talking to you differently than they're talking to us? We know it's hard. They don't always say, man, your job is, it's really hard to get you all the stuff you want.
Yeah, I don't hear a lot of that myself. I'm kind of insulated from it. Once we put somebody into an agreement, I have staff that handles that. But again, according to NAR studies, 1 out of 4 said it's harder than they thought. 18% actually said it's way harder than they thought. And frankly, I thought those are a little lower than we hear in the industry. Because, of course, you only hear the bad. You don't hear the smooth, the good stories.
Well, and it's also, it's interesting to know that most first-time home buyers certainly have never had that experience. And a lot of people who had bought and sold homes in the past were in a totally different era of mortgage where you signed your name and that was it. So, of course, the pendulum has swung one way. But what I think is really important to notice is it's not saying you're not saying they didn't get approved. You're not saying they couldn't buy the house. They're really saying it took a lot more paperwork.
And, you're exactly right. That's a good thing. That was the problem, is it was just, you're breathing and sign here and boom, you got $500,000. Yeah, that was a problem, and that's kind of what got us to where we are. So
I remember people used to come into our office and say, so how much can I get? And I said, well, your credit score is over 700. You could get $1 million, but you will not be able to afford it. And people, it's like deer in the headlights. And there's too many people, I think, lenders out there who said, well, not only can you get $1 million, I think you should. And it's nice to see that, the paperwork is at least stopping that type of.
No, that's a healthy thing for the real estate market and the economy in general.
Well, out of these people who maybe are finding it more difficult, you'd actually said about half of these home sellers are trading up. And, that's kind of an interesting thought, because so many people, the economy goes bad and they kind of buckle down. But, even once they go through the process, there's still that carrot of a nicer house. Yeah,
and I think that's kind of the American way. We're all used to wanting bigger and better, and for years
slab granite.
Absolutely, yeah. No granite tile, just slab granite.
Slab
that's right.
Granite now.
Yeah, no, you see that, and I think we're just wired to upgrade, bigger, better, whether it's your houses or your cars or whatever, and you need to have a little balance and reason to it, but that's okay. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and the balance of buying up is one thing, but I think what's also interesting is the influencing factors, because people aren't necessarily thinking about the investment opportunity as much, right? I mean, they're really considering different factors. You'd actually brought like neighborhood choice, which before maybe they thought of what's the highest appreciating neighborhood. You must see that.
Yeah, we do. You're right. The quality of the neighborhood's important. Convenience to your job is very important to the people typically. And, of course, bottom line is still the affordability factor.
The convenience to your job, has that, we love to talk about the toll. Has that, are people more conscious of that you talk to?
I'm in Snohomish County, primarily some North King, so I don't hear that as much, but I've heard of that a lot.
It's expensive. Although there's no traffic on 520, so for those people who are willing to pay it, and I still don't understand how people value the amount of gas it takes and the hour that it takes to drive around as worth more than the few bucks. But, I guess you're not having to deal with that. Maybe people are probably complaining about the Bothell Highway now, 522 getting packed up.
Traffic is always an issue. For us, it's 405.
Do you, when people are out there buying these houses, once they decide if traffic or whatnot, are people getting the deals they want? I mean, are sellers really having to cave into these buyers if it is the right neighborhood, if they don't have to sit in traffic and maybe they have one of these more affordable homes?
National NAR studies show that 61% said yes, they reduced their prices, which again, I would think it'd be more than that. I think the flaw in that stat is probably, for example, some builders I work with, we get full price all the time, but there's always closing cost concessions, upgrade concessions, things like that. But again, those same stats say that 95%, the home sold typically for 95% of the sales price.
Which is not really that bad.
That's pretty darn good, actually. That's pretty darn good. We're seeing it tightening up. Bottom line, if it's different than I've ever seen the market the way it is now. It used to be it's a good market and everything sells, or a bad market, nothing sells. Right now, there's actually, if you take a given price range, and if you're in the bottom half, you've got multiple offers, a lot of activity, and it's busy, it's happening. If you're in the top half, it's like you don't exist. You're on another planet. So it's important to price right.
And people, are certainly more price conscious. Without a doubt. And people still want, the buyers still want this out of this world deal, I think. And maybe you're seeing them a little bit more realistic, but 61%, only 61% reducing their price. I wonder if that's also a product of being a national stat rather than local.
I think you're right.
Because so many places really have. Detroit, it's not going any lower.
No, I think you're exactly right.
Lowered at $500, and now it's, the $1 houses. So when you start thinking about, you also brought up for sale by owner homes and kind of that difference between using an agent and not. And in fact, Kathy, who's going to join us in a little bit, talked about in design, there's these elements of if you have somebody, a professional help you, you actually can save money. And it seems similar to with, using a real estate agent can actually help you make money, not necessarily cost money.
And this is the most telling stat of all, is that if you hire a professional, a realtor for pricing, a stager for staging, any other professionals you may need, whether it's landscape or fixing the property up, national averages, if the for sale by owner average selling for $150,000, the average home sold to the broker nationwide was $215,000. So you're talking about close to 50% more.
It certainly helps to not only price it right, but just do those little things. I think that that maybe a realtor who with an objective opinion can help you notice, like, maybe taking all the pictures of your family off the refrigerator, huh?
Yeah, yes, absolutely, all of the above.
Well, again, we're here with Dave Duncan with Keller Williams and the Dave Duncan Group. Dave, we have about a minute before we have to go to break. Where do you see real estate going over the course of the next year?
I see the next year, a couple things. Prices have firmed up. All the studies have shown that. Inventory is shrinking, which means sellers are going to be even less flexible. And then, finally, that with rates down, we should have a great influx of new first-time home buyers. But bottom line is this will be a little better than last year, but pretty similar.
Yeah, well, we certainly are seeing home buyers come into the market. It's whether they can also find something that seems to be a pretty big factor on the actual purchase.
I had half a dozen calls this week, and there were all the realtors lamenting on the lack of inventory.
Must be a fun position for you to be in. That's something you can control, right?
I always have a lot of inventory. That's a good thing.
That's right. That's Dave Duncan of the Dave Duncan Group at Keller Williams. When we come back, as I mentioned, Kathy Bannock is going to join us. And, if you ever have considered redecorating your house, if you've just bought a house, then we're going to talk to you a little bit about how you'll be able to save some money. My name's Ben Brash, and that was Dave Duncan. You're listening to Brashonomics.